Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of Studio 501c3. I'm your host, Kim Jones, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Village, along with my colleague, Gabrielle Nash, our Director of Programs and Operations.
Our show features nonprofit organizations and charities that provide a public benefit to the community. Organizations that have a 501c3 status are recognized by the IRS as tax exempt because of their charitable programs. An example is our own organization, the Nonprofit Village. We incubate nonprofit organizations to help them grow. We also offer many charities a shared space for working, networking, and hosting programs or events. The Village helps nonprofits build their capacity by providing training and operational support within the shared space. We're proud to partner with Montgomery Community Media on this program to let you know about some of the tremendous programs and services provided by nonprofits in the county. MCM is your public resource that provides access to information relevant to our community.
Today we want you to meet Matt Logan, the Executive Director of Montgomery History, which collects, preserves, and interprets the county's history and heritage. While we speak with him, you'll see some of the photos of the nonprofit's activities periodically throughout our conversation. Matt, thanks so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, so let's start with a little bit about the history of Montgomery History. Organization was founded back in 1944.
Right.
I think Lily Stone was one of the major founders.
Yep.
What's the significance? Who was Lily Stone and how did this all get started?
Yeah, so we started as a chapter of the Maryland Historical Society, which has been around 150 years. So we just celebrated our 75th anniversary.
Wow.
And we have really transformed over that time. It was sort of a hobby for folks who were very comfortable economically, shall we say, in the community. And over time, as Montgomery County has changed, the Historical Society has changed as well. So today, 1 in 3 Montgomery County residents was born outside the United States. We have, wonderful diversity of population, whether it's Ethiopian or Chinese or Salvadoran, and so over time, we have begun to change our programming and our focus in order to better reflect the people who live here.
So you're expanding some collections and programs. Talk to us a little bit about what some of those are.
So the collections is really interesting. We've got about 10,000 objects in our artifact collection.
That's a lot.
We have thousands of textiles, for instance. We have one of the best quilt collections on the entire East Coast.
Wow.
We have farm implements. We've got an amazing medical collection, especially 19th century medical collection. And all this stuff is from the people who used to live here in Montgomery County. And so not only do we have that old stuff, we're also collecting things that are happening currently. For instance, Councilmember Evan Glass, who's the first openly gay county council member, just donated the pride flag that flew over the county office building to our permanent collection. Because that is an icon. It represents what the county is about today. And so in 75 years, the people who take my place are going to look back, and that will help them better understand what Montgomery County was like in the first half of the 21st century.
So that shows a lot of that change over time.
Yeah,
how things
we
have
try to be
moved.
very dynamic.
For
Yeah, and a lot of new voices. Yeah.
And what do you do with those thousands of artifacts?
We care for them. I mean, that's our first obligation is we have perpetual care and conservation, which takes a lot of time and effort. We also develop exhibits in which they can be displayed so that people can see them. We use them for research and study. People come from all over to look at them, academics and so forth, to use them for their own study. And so we also use it as a launching point for a lot of our programming. And we do programs not only for children, primarily school kids. We are also trying to connect with communities in which their voices have not traditionally been heard, whether it's those immigrants that we were talking about or the African American community, women, for instance. And we are also of service to the senior community.
In what way?
So we have a thing called the Speakers Bureau, in which we have about 50 experts who do about 75 different talks.
Wow.
This year they're going to be doing close to 200 talks around the county. Many of them are at senior centers or with senior groups and lifelong learning places. And so it is an amazing outreach program, and it really allows us to get into every corner of the county.
And I've seen some of that advertised and shared that with people that I know that have said, "Oh, thank you for letting me know about, that."
Oh my gosh,
speakers
these programs
program.
are getting so popular, and it's so gratifying.
And you move
to
them
see it
around
happen.
sometimes too.
All over the county.
Right. Okay. Great. Some of the places where you're hosting those talks?
So, well, we have our own speaker series at the Bell Dawson House, which is our home in Rockville, just west of Town Center.
Okay.
And we have a program called Tuesday Talks, in which we take very popular programs from, say, our Speakers Bureau. We also have an annual conference, and we have speakers that are at that conference. We have them come in and do free lunchtime talks in Rockville. And so, again, that's something that is not just for our members, but it's of service to the community.
To the whole community.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to want to learn more about that. Right now we're going to take a quick break. So as we go to break, know that we're going to come back and talk a lot more about the kinds of services and information Montgomery History provides for the community.
You're watching Studio 501c3 on Montgomery Community Media. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to Studio 501c3, your window into Montgomery County's premier nonprofit organizations. I'm Kim Jones, Executive Director of Nonprofit Village, along with our Director of Programs and Operations, Gabrielle Nash.
We're talking to Matt Logan, Executive Director of Montgomery History. Hey Matt, so what programs do you encourage the community to get involved with, specifically with Montgomery History?
So our biggest event every year is our annual conference that we typically hold in January, and we do that in partnership with Montgomery College. And this year we had about 300 people come to the Germantown campus. We have 12 different speakers and sessions. It was an amazing event. We had one, for the very first time, we did a session in Spanish.
Wow.
And we had
so reaching those new
people
audiences.
from the Latino community, exactly, to tell their story of how they ended up in Montgomery County and how they built community and how they used the churches and the schools and so forth to create a community for themselves. And again, that was in Spanish with English translation. Okay. We also have sessions on some very difficult topics, such as there were lynchings in Montgomery County. So we have those that we have to treat very sensitively, but it's imperative that the community knows about those things as we work through them as part of reconciliation. We also had...
Can I just interrupt you for a second?
course.
Because part of your work recently with that program is part of a national effort also with the soil collection at lynching sites?
Absolutely, and we've been very active in that, and the county has also created a Remembrance and Reconciliation Commission that I serve on that is beginning to look at ways, how do you heal those wounds that have persisted for many generations.
Sure.
Of course, those lynchings took place in the 19th century, but still, there's a legacy that we have to deal with. Right. So history, history is relevant. It touches us every day.
Yeah.
The other very cool program that we like to tout is History Day, which is part of a national competition, very much like the Spelling Bee, but young people, middle school and high school students, take part in doing research. They do original research, and then they present it either as a website, or they create documentaries, they create exhibits, research papers, or they can do a performance. And
how many students are participating?
Well,
in that?
that's interesting because in the past it was 200 or 300. This past year, Montgomery County Public Schools has written it into their curriculum for 7th grade advanced learners, and so we're going to have 2,000 students this year and an additional 2,000 next year, so a total of 4,000 very soon. And so, again, you begin to see that the humanities, you know, there's been such a focus on STEM education,
Sure.
which of course everyone supports, but some of that has come at the cost of the humanities, and we're very, very encouraged to see that things like history can be brought back into the curriculum and really enhance.
And there's
their
history
learning.
and science too.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is history.
One of the things that I also wanted to make sure that our audience knows about is the twice a year publication that Montgomery History produces. So it's a wonderful news magazine. Can you just tell us quickly?
Yeah, the Montgomery County Story has been around since the 1950s, and it is sort of our scholarly journal. And you know, one of our recent issues focuses on the Rockville's role in dismantling segregation nationwide. You know, Brown versus Board of Education was probably the most important Supreme Court decision in the 20th century. That started in Montgomery County, where we took on the unequal pay that black teachers were getting about half of what white teachers were making. So again, Thurgood Marshall was here, and that laid the groundwork for truly the most important Supreme Court case in the 20th century.
Incredible.
So that's very exciting. It's very important,
Yeah.
I think, for folks
How do people
locally to know.
How do people get the magazine?
So you can become a member, or you can go online at montgomeryhistory.org, and you can purchase them individually too.
Chock full of information.
Chock full.
Yeah, we're winding down. One more.
So besides the programs that you provide, which are great, what are other ways, if people are interested in doing more with Montgomery History, what are other ways they can get involved?
You know, one of the very cool things we do are pop-up exhibits, which are out in the community, you know, the Gaithersburg Book Festival and places like that where, you know, there's a lot of folks. We try to bring history to them. One of the most popular ones we do is with typewriters, historical typewriters. And so you see little kids come and they want to tap on the keys.
Right.
And of course, mom or grandma want to show, hey, you know, that's how I grew up. And so you get really cool intergenerational interactions.
For sure.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
I've seen that before, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So that's all the time we have today. Wish we had more time to talk with you, but we want to thank you for being here. Matt Logan is the Executive Director of Montgomery History. For more information, visit their website at montgomeryhistory.org.
I'm Gabrielle Nash, Director of Programs and Operations at the Nonprofit Village.
And I'm Kim Jones, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Village. Join us again for the next edition of Studio 501c3 here on Montgomery Community Media. Thanks, Matt.